let's talk about books. Well, hey guys, what is up? Welcome back. It is so good to be here making another video with you guys here today. I hope you are doing well. In today's video, we're going to change pace a little bit, but I hope you enjoy it. And today we're going to talk about something that I really love. If you know anything about me, you probably know that I'm a bit of a bookworm and I really love to read. And so today I just want to go over a few books I've been reading during quarantine. I know some of you may be reading a lot right now. Some of you may have more free time than ever. Some of you may be more busy than ever. Sometimes I don't even know where I'm at. I feel like I bounce between the two. But in any case, I thought it might be fun to share some of what I'm reading, give you guys some book recommendations, and just kind of talk books because I really like books. So one of the first books I read during this quarantine season was Delighting in the Trinity by Michael Reeves. You can see it here. And it's about, well, exactly what you would think. It's about the Trinity. And I know for many people, the Trinity is kind of like this scary doctrine, and it's this really deep thing that we can't wrap our heads around, and we don't really know what to do with it, so we kind of just like hide it in the closet and hope no one asks us about it. And if they do, we give them like really bad analogies, like it's kind of like water and ice and vapor, or it's kind of like an egg with the yolk. And we just kind of don't know what to do with it. But as Christians, especially as we do theology, we want to do deeply Trinitarian theology. And Michael Reeves gives a great introduction to that in this book. This is a tiny book. Like, to talk about something as big as the Trinity, this is really short. And there's even pictures in it. It's not a hard read at all. It's super accessible, but it's also not overly simplistic. While he is very efficient and he gets through it quick and it's very easy to read, it's not shallow. And so I think you'd really enjoy this book if you're looking to kind of just wade into the conversation of the Trinity. What's it about and how should it shape how we think as Christians? Because what you'll find is the Trinity is actually at the heart of the Christian religion. It is the very core of it all. God, in fact, would not be love if he was not Trinity. If that sounds crazy to you, read this book. I think you'll enjoy it. The second book I have on the list here today is Reappearing Church, and that is by Mark Sayers. This is actually the only book on this list that I'm going to share with you guys that I read for class. Right now I'm reading tons of books for class, and it just didn't seem important to throw all those in here because I'm kind of being forced more or less to read them. Working on a couple research papers. They're great books. If you want to know what kind of books I'm reading for school and what I'm researching, let me know. I'd be happy to make a video on that. But the reason I included this one is because I'm just a big fan of Mark Sayers in general. It's a book I would have read anyway. I love his podcast, This Cultural Moment, which he does with John Mark Comer, who has a book on this list as well, actually. And this is the second book in his two-book series, Disappearing Church and Reappearing Church. And the titles are pretty self-explanatory, and it just kind of talks about the hope for renewal in this time, how we can hope for renewal in our post-Christian culture. And he is a brilliant cultural critic. He is so keen in his insights into culture and how we can think Christianly about culture, how we can do cultural theology, and how we can examine the time that we're living in and really live into it faithfully and be faithful gospel witnesses in this time. It is a phenomenal book. There's even a really spooky part in the very second chapter where he talks about the potential of a global flu pandemic, and I read that and nearly dropped the book because it was just too crazy to be reading that in the midst of this time. But if you're interested in culture and the church and how those things intersect, Mark Sayers' books Disappearing Church and Reappearing Church are fantastic. I would highly recommend them. Another book that I read during this quarantine period that's been going on for however many weeks now is The Prophetic Imagination by Walter Brueggemann. You can see it here, the title's down there. But it's a really intriguing book. I will say, of the books on this list that I'm going to share with you, this is one book that I can't give a blanket recommendation to. I think Walter Brueggemann is brilliant. I think his thinking is provocative. I just don't think his biblical exegesis is always the most sound, and I think he holds a view of Scripture that I wouldn't find entirely tenable, little too liberal for me, but really insightful book. It is basically a social critique of the Hebrew prophets, and if that sounds like it would put you to sleep, then don't read it. But I have good news, it is short. I have lots of markings in this book because it was just that interesting, and I just found it to be really challenging, and I like to read books that kind of stretch my perspective a little bit. Engage with people I disagree with. That's how you really sharpen your intellect, how you learn more. So if you're in a position where you feel that you're mature, it's not going to sway your faith too much to read someone you disagree with, I would encourage you to check out this book. It's a really fascinating study of the Hebrew prophets and just the way that they critique power and the way that they see themselves, and just the idea that he talks about of the prophetic imagination and how we live faithfully. And that, I think it'll really expand your ideas of prophecy. If you think of prophecy as just talking about the future, this could really open up your world. So if you're interested in something like that, check it out. All right, another book that I read during this season is Hand in Hand by Randy Alcorn, with this beautiful cover. I don't know where that is, but I would really like to go there. So anyway, it is a great book. The subtitle is The Beauty of God's Sovereignty and Meaningful Human Choice. And once again, less so than the Prophetic Imagination, this is a book that I would have some disagreements with, but only a few. Randy Alcorn is a former Arminian turned 4-point Calvinist, and if that all sounded like gibberish to you, don't worry. In fact, if that is something that sounds like gibberish, but you're like, I'd kind of like to know what this whole Arminian Calvinist thing is about, this is a fantastic introduction. It is so approachable. It is very much just honest, and it's open, and it's not polemical, it's not argumentative. It's really just about, let's look at these issues, let's be fair, and how can we think about God's sovereignty and us actually making meaningful choices. I think Randy Alcorn and I would come to slightly different conclusions, but altogether it's an incredibly fair book. And if you want to explore more about God's sovereignty and how we make choices or free will, how that all works, this is a great introduction, and I would really, really recommend it. All right, the next book is one I actually just finished a couple days ago. All these books that I'm listing are books that I've read since I've been home on quarantine, so however many weeks that's been. But this one I finished on Sunday. This is actually a book I've been reading since before quarantine, and it was one of my Sabbath books. This year I've been working hard to try to practice Sabbath, which actually sounds very counterintuitive, but you know what I mean. And so part of my Sunday routine while I was at school is I go to church Sunday night. So in the morning I would go out to breakfast by myself and take a book. And if you're saying, Austin, that sounds really sad, like you need a life, don't be sad for me. I absolutely love that. I'm an introvert. That's like my dream. Breakfast by myself with a book. What a life. But in any case, this is one of the books that I was reading during that time that I would read every Sunday. And so this past Sunday, I finished it. And it is by Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and it's called The Cost of Discipleship. And this is one of many covers you could get it in. Dietrich Bonhoeffer is an absolutely fascinating guy. He was a German Lutheran pastor during World War II, and he was actually killed by the Nazis in a concentration camp. He was part of a plot to kill Hitler. He is just a fascinating guy. If you're not familiar with his life story, get familiar with it. Read a good book on it. Eric Metaxas actually worked on another one on his life, who wrote the foreword to this book. But Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he was brilliant. His insights into life and community, they're just astounding. And this book, I'll be honest with you, it reads like a real slap in the face. And I mean that in the most complimentary of ways. If you want a book to tell you how great you are and make you feel good, don't read this book. It will do the exact opposite. It's a harsh, stinging read that can be uncomfortable as he talks about how we make grace so cheap. The chapter on cheap grace in this book alone is worth the cost of admission. But it's just a wonderful book. It's a little dense. It uses the Old King James Version. Some of his language can be a little difficult at times, but it's a phenomenal book. And it's one of those books that's just a classic. And as a Christian, you should read it at some point. And so I figured, why not read it now? So really good book. I'd check it out. Not the easiest read, but I recommend it. All right, the very first book that I read during quarantine was this book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. It is an absolutely fantastic book, probably one of my top 5 reads of the past couple years, and I read a lot of books. It's really, I can't say enough about this book. It is tremendous. John Mark Comer is a brilliant writer, brilliant communicator, really enjoy his stuff. We'd probably disagree on some things, but that's the story with everybody. But this book, man, oh man, oh man, is it a book that it's timely for sure in our culture of needing to eliminate hurry. And then it was kind of forced on all of us, which is just crazy, but it's It's an incredible read. It will really inspire you to slow down your life and give you very practical tips on that. He talks a lot about spiritual disciplines in this book, and if you know me and you've been watching my content, that is something I'm super passionate about, because I think oftentimes we focus only on having the right beliefs and not necessarily the right practices. But if we want to grow in our faith, we need to create healthy rhythms and practices that conform us into the image of Jesus, that lead us on the path to righteousness, all of those things. In this book, it does a tremendous job of giving you a super accessible introduction to spiritual disciplines, and even some modern takes on things like choosing to drive the speed limit and come to a complete stop at stop signs, and just paring down your wardrobe, all these different things. Great book. I can't recommend it enough. Read it. You'll love it. Buy another copy. Give it to someone. In fact, that's what I did. This is actually my dad's copy because I bought it. I loved it. I bought him a copy. It's so good. All right, we've come to the last book for this video, and I know that's very sad because I want to talk about books all day. And maybe if you've watched this video this far, you're a kind of person that would like to do that as well. But like I said, only wanted to give you a couple, only the books that I've been reading for fun and not just the school ones. Wanted to keep this interesting for you and make this video not take forever. And so the last book on the list is called The Pastor, and it's by Eugene Peterson. He is the author of the Message Bible, if you've heard of that. He's also written other books. He wrote the book A Long Obedience in the Same Direction, which you've probably heard me talk about before. I absolutely loved that book, and he's written tons and tons of books. But this book is a memoir, and it's about his life as a pastor. And he recently passed away, and this book, it was such a blessing to me as someone who wants to be a pastor, to just learn from his wisdom, from years of pastoring, and some of his insight into the pressure that's put on pastors and the things that pastors want to capitulate to, and the things that is just tempting to do this to grow your church, but to really sell your soul in so doing. And so this book, it really made me think. It pointed out a lot of just the arrogance in my own life and the things that perhaps I'm pursuing out of a place of pride. And really, it was a tremendous read. It was like getting to sit down with a mentor who is wise and seasoned and can look at you and just tell you, hey, this is how it went for me. Learn from my mistakes, perhaps emulate my successes, and really just getting at the heart of being a pastor. So I loved this book. If you're interested in going into ministry or just want to know what it's like to be a pastor, I would recommend this book. Well, guys, that's it. That's all the books I have to talk about today. If you enjoyed this, let me know. I would love to make more videos about books, and if that's something you'd like, I will happily do so. But in any case, I just wanted to thank you for watching this video. Truly, it means so much to me that you would take the time to watch this video, especially this far. You are like the best if you've watched this far. And if you're new to this channel, I want to say welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. This channel, Gospel Simplicity, is all about the beautiful simplicity and transformative power of the gospel, the good news about Jesus, which, trust me, is good news. In fact, the best news that this world has ever heard. We're out to talk about life, Jesus, and the journey of faith in a real honest and open way. So if that at all interests you, I would really encourage you, hit subscribe to become a part of what we're doing here on this channel. And to all of you who have already subscribed and who are liking videos and commenting on them and sharing them with your friends, you have my deepest thanks. In all sincerity, that means so much to me. And I wish I could just shake your hand, give you a hug, and tell you how much that means, but there's a screen between us, and social distancing would say that is not okay. So in any case, I hope that you know that I appreciate you. Again, thank you so much for watching this video. Until next time, be sure to be on the lookout for more videos, and as always, go out and love God and love others, because truly, above all else, that will change the world. Peace, love you guys so much. See you next time.